Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, the guy who forgets who his real name really is. And today for you guys, we're going to be talking about the May 2002 list to July 2002 list. So in the last video, guys, we did talk about the May 2002 list. And we talked about the birth of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the TCG. And the video we did before that, guys, if you don't remember, was the birth of Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. So if you want to check those videos out, there'll be links down in the description below to them. You can go check them out on my channel, and there should be links at the end of this video if you want to watch them later on. They are longer videos, just like this one is, but they're very in-depth, they're very helpful, and if you want to learn about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And this great game we do love, you can definitely go check them out, especially if you love nostalgia. It's a really awesome ride. So let's get started, guys. So we're not going to go over the May 2002 ban list because we did that in the last video. But in May 2002, not much was happening. Yes, you had the list. There was only a couple of cards released really at this time of Game of Yu-Gi-Oh! You had Legend of Blue Eyes, Structure Deck Seto Kaiba Structure Deck, and Yugi Structure Deck. That was all you had. One main set and two starter decks. That is all. So the card pool is not that big. So pretty much it's vanilla beatdown going on at this moment. But, however, in June 26, so June 26, 2002, we have the release of the next main series set, Metal Raiders, and this is when Seto Kaiba entered the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you didn't know. After, I think it was around June, July or September, this is actually when I started entering the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is kind of funny. I'm going back through my childhood right now, because this is when I started getting the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is when after Metal Raiders got released. So yeah, nostalgia for me, little old Kevin. But yes, so let's get started. So we're going to go over some of the more the noteworthy cards of this set. There's a lot of them, cards that did have an impact on future metas, current metas that we're talking about, not too far from the distant metas. Pretty much any card that has had some type of major impact in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! We're going to go over now in Metal Raiders. Then we also have Gate Guardian, assemble all the pieces. So Gate Guardian and all his pieces came out in this set as well. Suijin, Kazijin, and Sangha the Thunder all came out actually in this set to meld their powers together and combine. So next up we actually have Black Skull Dragon, which is personally one of my favorite fusions in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Next to Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Like OG fusions, this is one of my favorite. For the fun part, that it did face off, if you remember in the original show when the Paradox Brothers and their riddles were playing, apparently Black Skull Dragon could teleport. I forget how they won that duel, but I know that Black Skull Dragon teleported from the first entrance of the thing to the end of it, I think through Dark Magician or something. Maybe it was Magical Hats. No, it wasn't Magical Hats, but yeah. I remember that episode, and I remember seeing it, and I just thought it was awesome. And I really liked the card, because it was one of my first holos that I actually pulled was Black Skull Dragon and Toon World, actually. So it has a lot of nostalgia for me. It is the cover card of the set, actually, also. Next, we have one of the most powerful traps in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Even to this day, it is played, though it has been power creeped, it has spawned a continuous archetype to some degree of other cards that are very good, and that is Mirror Force. Always remember, if there's one face down card on your opponent's side of the field, it's gotta be a Mirror Force. Believe me, even as a one-of back in the day, it's gotta be Mirror Force, and unless you have a Jinzo, Lord help ya, because everybody's gonna make fun of you saying, you should have known it was a Mirror Force. You should have put some of your monsters in defense position instead of trying to just be fancy and just summon all of them in attack position, even though you already had game. Mirror Force, the bane of every Yu-Gi-Oh! Player out there. Next we have Summon Skull. Now Summon Skull did get a common reprint in the Yugi starter deck, but here it got the holo treatment and got printed as a holo rarity, which is really cool, actually, and I actually own one of them. Next we have Time Wizard, Time Roulette, go! Because if you use Time Roulette and you have Baby Dragon on the field, according to Joey Wheeler, that makes Thousand Dragon, and it makes all your opponent's monsters decay. Except if they're machines, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Logic in the first season, am I right? But yes, Time Wizard came out in this set. Very famous card, literally, we all call it Time Magic. Except zombies, they can't be destroyed apparently in the show because they're already dead, apparently. Yu-Gi-Oh! Logic again, right? For original season. Next we have Change of Heart. So Metal Raiders was known for its very powerful traps like Mirror Force, and it had some very good traps, but at the same time it had some dang good powerful spells, just like Change of Heart. Change of Heart, oh, so OP. I steal your monster, I sack it off for a Summon Skull. You don't get the monster back for that turn, at the end of my turn. OP. Or you can use the Change of Heart to steal your opponent's monster, that one powerful monster they have on their field, take it, and then kill them with it. It happens. Change of Heart, too broken. But the artwork of Change of Heart, just like Bakura said in that one episode, it looks very beautiful, and I have to admit to it. It is a very beautiful looking card, actually. I believe somebody mentioned to me, I will mention about Change of Heart before I move on, that this is based off the devil. Him changing from the evil, from good to evil, actually. I think that's what this is supposed to be, because actually it has a halo in the OCG. Next we have Solemn Judgment. Now, let me give a minute to my old man here, Solemn Judgment. I love Solemn Judgment. I really, really, really love Solemn Judgment. But that old man, back in the day, was not played in a lot of decks. It wasn't until literally the late GX era, early 5Ds era, that we would actually see Solemn Judgment being played. On the low, though, on the very low, literally, people would talk about locals, how busted this card was, you know, when the game got faster. So when we started heading into the GX era, and at the end of 2004 Chaos, after GOAT format, so we're talking, what, like 2000, late 2005, 2006, after Cyber Dragon came out, literally, people started talking about a lot more how good this card was, and you could pick them up really cheap. They were like $1, $2, 50 cents. I remember for some lightly played back then. Broken card that you could get really cheap, and it wasn't until later on that people figured out how broken it was. And it wasn't until Teledad, when you would play this card because you could make Stardust instead of Judgment, did this card get limited and hit. So for a long part of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, this card was at 3 of, and people thought it was trash. But believe me, I played it in Horse level 8 back in the day. OP card. Next we have Thousand Dragon. Now this is the fusion that you have to use Time Wizard and Baby Dragon to make. It was a secret rare at the time. Really nice, along with Gate Guardian. I know those were the two main secrets of the set. But yeah, Thousand Dragon was actually a really cool card back then. I don't want a secret, but it's a very nice card to have. Next cards we're going to talk about is we also have Witch of the Black Forest, as well came out of this set. And Witch of the Black Forest was a really, really good card that came out of this set. Now, Sangan also came out of this set as well. I can't remember off the top of my head if Sandwich, you guys probably know the fusion between Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest, showing their eternal love for their baby Sandwich. You know, you could actually have a sandwich in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Bad jokes, bad jokes. But yes, that card, Sangan and Witch, two of the best generic searchers ever to be in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out of this set. And they made beautiful, sweet music for a couple of formats in the early days. Then Witch went off to rehab, and Sangan, as a one-of, kept playing and playing. And then he met this girl named Tour Guide, and then she just made him go crazy, and he went on the ban list. And then she went and played with those crazy Burning Abyss, and you know, the love triangle just continued. And now Tour Guide's still at 1, waiting for Sangan. Sangan came back. Now, Witch is probably coming off the ban list very soon, so I'd be curious to know what Witch is going to say when she sees Sangan with Tour Guide. That love triangle. Love the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh! Drama show and love triangle. Sangan, Witch, and Tour Guide. jokes aside, I'm having too much fun doing this video. But yes, Witch and Sangeki did come out of this set. Two of the great, amazing searchers in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Then we also have two of my favorite cards, and what formulated really the first anti-meta strategy in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is Dream Clown and Class Clown, or Crass Clown actually. So these two cards formed an anti-meta strategy to some extent. It made your opponents, it was an anti-meta strategy against beatdown strategies. You would take your opponent's big monsters, which had high attack but had very low defense, and then you would put them in defensive position, and then you could attack over them. That's how Dream Clown and Class Clown worked. And it was a very formidable thing later on down the road with things like Gravity Bind and Limit Level B. But at this time, it's the beginning of the first anti-meta deck. Then we also have Mask of Darkness that came out of this set. We have Catapult Turtle, which was used in Magical Scientist FTK later down the road, and other OTKs down the road. We have Yu-Gi-Oh! Jesus' favorite card, Lava Moth, and the not so good Ultimate Great Moth, according to Weevil Underwood. But Lava Moth, like, I don't know why this card's still at 3 of, man. I mean, it's only Yu-Gi-Oh! Jesus that's keeping this card from being hit on the ban list. I swear. Then we actually have Soul Release, which is a good anti-meta card. And down the road, this will be used in the side deck a lot. And even to this day is a very good card. We also have Tribute to the Doom, which to some degree outclassed Fissure. If you guys remember Fissure that came out of structure decks before this. So Tribute to the Doom kind of outclassed Fissure. Then we also have Shadow Ghoul, which is a pretty good card. You have the Cheerful Coffin, which was used in Dark Worlds in GX era and with the resurgence of the structure deck later on down the road. Then you had Dark Elf, which was the first normal summonable 2000 attacker. But she was a rare, and she did have a downside. You had to pay 1,000 life points, I believe it was, to actually attack. Life points mean a lot more back in the day because you couldn't really regain them, except if you run in DM Kito the Cure Master, which was the best life regaining. So 1,000 life points was a lot, and it could be dead compared to La Jin or 7 Colored Fish, which we'll talk about in a second, that came out of Metal Raiders. So literally, it was a good card. It was used a lot in the meta, but you had to use it right, pretty much is what I'm saying. Next we have Robin Goblin, which is actually a very good trap card. Helped with a strategy later down the road, which will be more well known, called hand control decks. Things like Don Zaluk and White Hat, the guy with the white hat. Then we also have Cybersaurus, which was actually an instant fusion target and was used in Karakuri versions back in the early part of the Zexor era and the late 5Ds era. You also have Trent, because Trent is just as OP as Lava Moth, but you know, Lava Moth actually has an effect. Trent does not. Lava Moth is normal summonable, so I mean, Lava Moth is more OP than Trent, though Trent is broken. Then we also have Elegant Egotist, which was used for Harpies. We also have White Magical Hat, which was the card I was referring to with Don Zaluk. This was a card that was later on used with Axe of Despair, United We Stand, and other decks, as you'll see later down the road. Was used in a most powerful deck called Hand Control deck. Very powerful deck that was used back in the day and actually did top a bunch of events. Then you have 7 Colored Fish. Now 7 Colored Fish dug the graves for anything less than 1,800 defense. Now, even though in the OCG Gemini Elf was already out, we were not going to get Gemini Elf for quite some time down the road. But for now, pretty much Neo the Magical Swordsman and Battle Ox, they were outclassed. They have been power creep now, because now we had 2 summonable normal monsters that were 1,800 attack. You had La Jin, and you had 7 Colored Fish, and now you also have Dark Elf. You could run as a 1/1. So yes, we had, like I was mentioning, power creep, guys. 7 Colored Fish power creeped out Battle Ox and Neo. May they rest in peace. Then we also have Cannon Soldier, which was used in Magical Scientist FTK, and for a good part of Yu-Gi-Oh history was also used in a bunch of FTKs, OTK decks, even later on Tomb Cannon Soldier. Then we also have Muka Muka for Muka Muka Beatdown. Now Muka Muka was not used in the meta, but Muka Muka is a dang good card, really. Especially in an era where you could actually draw in your opening hand your sixth card. Muka Muka was very powerful, especially in bad hand situations. Muka Muka was OP, and I built a fun deck around it at one point, way back in the day. But it was really good. It was literally had the same effect as Life of the Sky Dragon, just not as much attack. So guys, now we're going to head over and talk about the meta. So what was the meta like at the time, guys? The meta was kind of interesting, actually. So at this time, you did have other strategies going on that people were trying to do. But really, for the most part, it wasn't a lot. It wasn't really that different than the previous format. You pretty much, if you look at some of these old deck lists from back in the day, from the ones we could find in articles and whatnot, they pretty much are just Seto Kaiba or Yugi structure decks just packed in with new cards. That's literally all it is. It's just like if you took a Yugi structure deck, put some Legend of Blue Eyes in it, Metal Raiders in it, some of the good cards, and there you go. It wasn't the most optimal builds, but we will show you some deck profiles, hopefully, of some of the more optimal builds later on in this video, very quickly. But pretty much the meta was very, qu'est-ce que c'est? It wasn't diverse. You had Beatdown, you did have the birth of some other strategies like deck out decks and hand control decks and the clown control deck. Like, you had these different strategies starting to form, but it was very hard to form these strategies with only two main sets being released. So it would take probably one more set for more other different type of decks to formulate and work. But at this time, pretty much Beatdown did reign supreme. So guys, as you can see here, we're going to be showing off to you some of the decks that were used during this June summer part of the game of 2002. Now, do keep in mind that these decks are not historically accurate. We are building these decks with hindsight, and you have to keep that in mind if you're trying to learn how to play these decks. Optimally, these are some of the best ways you can play said deck, but for the time frame and how young the Yu-Gi-Oh community really was at that time, and also being only local tournaments and no regional tournaments, and there's no meta that is concrete defined yet, you have a situation where people are still playing with the Yugi and the Yugi and Kaiba starter decks, like I was saying before, and they're just tossing things in with from the newer sets, along with their Blue Eyes and their Dark Magician and so forth and so on. So keep that in mind. With hindsight, so if you want to play with some friends, you could use these deck builds. So the first thing we have here is just regular old Beatdown. You got your double summon Skull up here, which is your main Great One tribute. You have your seven colored fish, your Lejin. You have your giant soldier of stone. Some people ran more defenders like double giant soldier of stone, maybe a mystic elf, aqua Mador, but giant soldier of stone actually had the best attack out of all of those. You have your dark elf, so you can attack. Dark elf wasn't a bad card necessarily. Man-eater bug is your 1-for-1 removal. This card I remember playing, and I remember other people playing it because the traps, you ran a lot more traps back then, and this was pretty good. And that's pretty much Mask of Darkness. It works the same as Magician of Faith. While Magician of Faith adds spells back, Mask of Darkness adds traps back. Sangan, your generic searcher, along with Witch of the Black Forest as a 2 of. Wall of Illusion, great defensive card. This card was a little bit better, I think, than Silent Soldier of Stone because it could bounce things back. So if they attacked with a 18 beat stick, you could bounce it back to their hand, and they've wasted their normal summon. Now you can attack them directly. You have your good staple spell cards, your Change of Heart, your Dark Hole, your Fissure for 1-for-1 removal, your Double Heavy Storm because this was at 2 of. You also have your Monster Reborn, your Pot of Greed, your Regeki, your Swords of Revealing Light. Magic Jammer, people look back on this and think that Seven Tools of the Bandit was the better card,
Magic Jammer, when it came out, was the better card because spell cards were a lot more powerful than they are today necessarily, and they were a lot more generic. So if I'm trying to stop a Regeki, a Pot of Greed, a Monster Reborn, a Heavy Storm, a Dark Hole, even a Soldier of Union Light for stalling, this card is the better one to use. Then we have Mirror Force, Trap Hole, Wabuku, just good staple trap cards. Now I'm going to move on next, guys, to Clown Control. Now, Clown Control is one of my favorite decks actually to play. I played this deck back then after playing around for the first couple of months when Legend of Blue Eyes and the starter decks came out. I switched over to playing Clown Control and I loved it. So Clown Control works very simply. You want to change the position of your clowns and you want to stall out to be able to change your positions to pop your opponent's monsters. So you have Dream Clown and Class Clown. Pretty much they function the same way from defense to attack or attack to defense to pop a card. You have your Giant Soldier of Stone, your Man-Eater Bugs for one removal. You have your Mask of Darkness for your traps because you want to keep reoccurring them to protect your Class Clown and Dream Clown as you pop and poke for damage. You have your Magician of Faith, your Sangan, your Wall of Illusion. You can kind of see how these just good staple cards, there's a handful of them and you see them just like today, you see them splatter all over the place. You have your Witch of the Black Forest, your Harpy's Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Fissure, Heavy, Monster Reborn, Pot, your staple lineup here pretty much which was used. Your Magic Jammers, your Mirror Forces, your Trap Hole, your Wabuku. The main thing you can see here is this is an anti-meta strategy, and you'll see this strategy become more prevalent when Gravity Bind and Limit Level B come out. But this was the start of Clown Control, and it would evolve over the course of Yu-Gi-Oh's history in the early part to mid part of it, I guess you could say. Especially when Limit Level B came out and Gravity Bind came out later on. We'll revisit this deck. The last deck I wanted to show you is Exodia. So everybody always asks about the classic Exodia decks. So this is just an example of the classic Exodia deck you see here. You have your 5 pieces of the Forbidden One. You have your Giant Soldier of Stone for defense. Your Man-Eater Bugs you would still run. I remember people playing Exodia at locals. There was one guy that had all the 5 pieces and he was playing with Man-Eater Bugs. And I remember looking at deck profiles as I was doing this video. People play with Man-Eater Bug. Mask of Darkness so you can recur your traps. Sangan, Witch, searching for your pieces. Wall of Illusions, your best stall card, really. Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Fissure, your staple thing here. Maybe not the heavies, but you're able to do damage with this deck. It's not just like a draw Exodia deck like everybody knows nowadays or Incarnate. You also have your Magic Jammer, and you can see just your staple lineup to some degree. 3 trap holes because you're trying to stop their normal summons, and normal summons are key. So I hope you guys enjoyed a little history on these decks. And just this is like I said, you're using hindsight to build these decks, but this is what the card pool. This is building what you had with the card pool at the time. But let's get back to talk about the ban list.
So guys, as you saw by those deck profiles, there was a lot of different variations of decks, like I said before, but they weren't too different. And these new strategies that had just been released with Metal Raiders to some extent, they weren't fully developed. They were still in their infancy. Things like even water beatdown, which become a thing with 7-colored fish down the road, is still in its infancy. There's not enough cards. And people are so focused on just playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And Seto or still be like the anime. So those were the key things. Beatdown, like I said, was the main thing. But let's go to the July 2002 limited list. At this time, guys, like you should know already, there was no ban list. The first ban list did not happen until 2004, which is over a year away from us in this series and in this time frame, which is ridiculous. But the game was in its infancy, and Konami apparently did not want to hit their broken cards, things of that nature. But without further ado, let's get started on the limited cards. So for the July 2002 limited list, you had Mirror Force, which went to 1 of. And Mirror Force, for the most part, I think it did get banned later down the road, I forget. But for the most part, it will be at 1 of for a good chunk of the part of Yu-Gi-Oh's history until we get to the 2000 teens, the 2010s, 11s, and 12s. Then it came, started becoming semi-limited and then eventually unlimited. So yeah, Mirror Force was limited at this time though. Another two cards, the two greatest searches out of pretty much of Yu-Gi-Oh's history got limited in this part, and that is Sangan and Witch did get limited on the July 2002 limited list. And then the thing that I still can't wrap my head around that they didn't put this card to one of is Heavy Storm. They didn't just limit Heavy Storm, they semi-limited it, which means you can run now 2 Heavy Storm in your deck instead of 3 of. Just think in an early Yu-Gi-Oh era, 2 Heavy Storm, and just think right now, even with Diagram and things that float when you destroy them, spell cards that float nowadays, and traps that get effects when they float. Still imagine an era, like even today with 2 Heavy Storm and all the other backward removal we have. That's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Just to think, just 2 Heavy Storm. That's powerful. Ridiculous. But yes, that was the July 2002 limited list, and that's where we're going to end this video, guys. Next time we are going to be covering July 2002 to October 2002, and let me tell you, there's a lot of stuff going on in that time frame. The game of Yu-Gi-Oh is definitely going to be ramping up a lot more. A lot more sets are going to be released. We're going to start getting our tournament packs and things of that nature getting released in the fall. The first type of tournament packs, your precursors to your Astro packs, OTS packs. These are the precursors. These are the granddads of the granddads. And we're going to be talking about the birth of the pretty much locals in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Scene. Pretty much the birth of the locals, really. Because at this time, guys, like I said, there's no major events except locals and probably a couple of regionals here and there, if any. But locals was the mainstay and the bread and butter of every Yu-Gi-Oh player right now. And the school playground. But till next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling. Please give this video a thumbs up.